निवासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशितिकण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिणि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनि रोषिनि दितिश्रुतरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Let me know if the audio is fine. I hope it is. Yeah, it seems fine. Let me know if it isn't. Jai Shri Ram Ninar. So Ninar is asking, any live streams planned for US elections results day? Not sure about which date. Yeah, I've not been following any US politics since for the last few months. So I don't know when is it. If you all know the dates and what timing and what date will be in India, let me know. I'm curious about it at least. So, and since I'm again staying up late, so maybe we can do it anyway. Let's see. Jai Shri Ram, Namo Vimashoda. Bye Har Har Mahadev. Yeah, so Divyamani had recommended in my Instagram DM that he wants me to do a live reaction of Vivek Ramaswamy's appearance on Lex Friedman. I'm very curious about that one, that interview. I have not watched it myself, so it will be, I think, great to watch it, and watch it for the first time while you all are also watching me watch it. But I'm not sure how long is it, because if we pause it, discuss it, then move on, it will be probably 3-4 hour long, no? So let's see. What's stopping me from becoming Hindu Batman? Kaladin Storm Blessed. Watch Bahurupi today in a theater. It's a solid little film with great characters and brilliant messaging for its context. But आपने तो ऐसे describe किया था जैसे खुद देखो, मैंने बोला था it's nowhere as good as Kantara, okay? So compare it to other Tollywood stuff. Compare it to its, think of it for what its budget is. So then think of the West Bengal education system. Think of how much time is being given to the scriptwriters, how much time do the directors have for themselves. All those things matter. And then how big is the team of scriptwriters? No, all that. Since some people were accusing me of giving out the spoilers and stuff, and just today I learned that today morning they finally released one of the basically the last song in the film. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? The one in which Shilajit was there. So when people accuse me of giving out the spoiler, and today I learned that song had not been released up until now on YouTube because of how it will spoil the movie and stuff. So then I thought, what? Who cares about that? Because it's not like it was some gripping, intense mystery that I have no clue what the fuck is going to happen. I wonder what. It was no such thing. It was overall a sort of a nice experience that you go through watching the movie. It was not some like let's say, what are the most fascinating mystery it was no Sherlock Holmes or Hound of the Baskerville stuff. Okay, so I did not even think I was giving out spoilers, because I did not set any context earlier on for the rest of the movie, right? I just said what happens in the end, and how is that even a spoiler, what I said in my review? I don't know. So I didn't even feel guilty when people accuse me of giving out the spoilers. It's not that kind of a movie. The point of the movie is not that fucking mystery. So yes, I agree that it's not the stuff pan-India audiences watch usually, especially English-speaking audiences watch. But it's, of course, very, very significant, more significant and better than the rest of Tollywood. A time ta kintu khub bhalo live. So Abhinav is saying this time is very convenient for him, but so many people get pissed off that I do it in this time of the year, this time of the day. I'm just saying that say wait till the end of the election. That's when US politics will get. Yeah. Hriday Shah, Jai Shivrai. Over 2 hours, I see. देखते हैं कितना कर सकते हैं. Even his one on Jordan Peterson was decent. He has been on Jordan Peterson twice or thrice. I have watched the first 2 times, I think. Has he gone once again? Can discuss specific parts. Yeah, let's see. We will check out the timestamps and see what topics interest us. Dada, you open to making music for games? Absolutely. Abhay, namaskar. Dada, will you do a live reaction video of Balaji Srinivasan and Lex? It's only 7 hours long. Yeah. हम एक दिन नहा धो के बैठेंगे, लंच ब्रेकफास्ट सब यहाँ पे आसपास होगा. भोसड़ी के बोलचे बालाजी फ्रीडमैन एट्टा. Apparently election results take time. It seems not like, oh yeah, they'll take 1 month to count it. Did you see in this? Canada is next. He might lose his PMship. Yeah. Okay then. So guys, today's paper is called Partition and Ruptures in Dalit Identity Politics in Bengal. This is by uh, uh, probably one of the two most famous sociologists in the world who have come out of Bengal, who are alive at the moment in the whole world. Okay, this person is Professor Sekhar Bandyopadhyay, who first declared that Bhadralok itself is a caste. Okay, he is no right winger, but even that guy is pointing out, in fact, is going beyond the norm definitions. Okay, the conformist definitions and the lenses we use when talking about caste. He's moving away from that, and is saying that Bhadralok itself is a caste. The Brahman Boidokayastho, their existence in Kolkata, that is a caste itself. Okay, then he has fascinating other research as well. Very old. He's coming to a talk discussion on Friday in Kolkata. Maybe some people will go there. Let's see. So it's with another person called Kunal Chakraborty. He's an expert on Bengal's Upapurans. So the other person who is as sought after as Sekhar Bandyopadhyay among the sociologists who are from Bengal and are known worldwide is a person called Partho Chatterjee. Not that Partho Chatterjee, but we are discussing Sekhar Bandyopadhyay's paper. This is from 2009. I have gone through the abstract and conclusion. I went through it yesterday. This is from 2009. Okay, this is from Victoria University of Wellington, and this is in University of South Florida. Downloaded by University of South Florida. Okay, no. What is the publication? Asian Studies Review. Right. Okay. Let me just show you a basic bio of Professor Bandyopadhyay. So this is the man. Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is born in 1952. Is 72 years old. Is an Indian historian and fellow of the Royal Society Te Aparangi. What is Te Aparangi? Oh, it's not a Sanskrit word. Okay, I thought it's Aparangi something. Bandyopadhyay is known for his research on the Dalit caste of Bengal. BA from Presidency College, MA University of Calcutta, PhD from University of Calcutta. Lives in Wellington with his wife. Not Wellington, where great bike helmets are sold. This is in New Zealand. Okay. So let's check out some of his books and stuff. Burma Today, Economic Development and Political Control since 1962, Caste Politics and the Raj, Caste Protest and Identity in Colonial India, Caste Culture and Hegemony. This man is sort of the go-to man for discussing anything related to caste in Bengal. Okay, from Placid to Partition and After, A History of Modern India, Decolonization in South Asia, Meanings of Freedom in Post-Independence West Bengal, Caste and Partition in Bengal, edited collections, Bengal, Rethinking History, Nationalist Movement in India, India and New Zealand, Decolonization and Politics of Transition in South Asia, Caste and Communal Politics in South Asia, Bengal, Communities, Development and States, People of India, West Bengal, China, India and End of Development Models, Globalization, Challenges and of Development in Contemporary India, Religion and Modernity in India, one of the most influential Bengali sociologists in the world, Calcutta, The Stormy Decades, Indians and the Antipodes, Networks, Boundaries and Circulation, Caste in Bengal, histories of hierarchy, exclusion and resistance. This is very significant. Books in Bengali, অষ্টাদশ শতকের মুঘল সংকট ও আধুনিক ইতিহাস চিন্তা, জাতি বর্ণ ও বাঙালি সমাজ. That's his Bengali book. Okay, Caste, Varna and Bengali Society, 1998. Journal articles, book chapters, etc. Okay, fascinating guy. Let's let's start the paper discussion now. This is going to be fascinating. You all will know from the abstract itself. Let me just check out some comments. Abhay is asking, what do you think about the naturalistic fallacy, especially in the case of gender roles and rights? Yeah, Abhay, naturalistic fallacy is a very significant thing to, let's say, take note of, because you can't just declare everything natural and move on from there, because uh, nature uh, nature is also changing. But when society changes, every social dynamic changes, whether you like it or not, whether it's right or not, the fact of the matter is that it does change. When it changes, you can't just say this is natural and that was natural. And um, I used to be a big fan of saying thing this is natural and then moving on, especially after the after my turn from leftist politics. Okay, when I first became a right winger, even before I became a Hindutwati, that is when I first got into American right winger ideas and Jordan Peterson and stuff. So I was a huge fan of saying those things. Then I remembered from my veganism and animal rights activism days that that was the trap that every anti-vegan guy always fell into, that it's natural to eat meat. And what we used to argue to them back, our counter argument used to be that they used to say that it's natural for us to eat meat. See, lions eat meat, tigers eat meat, etc. So we used to tell them that lions and tigers roam around naked, they lick their own balls. Do you do that? And they fucking hunt, they don't go to the supermarket, they have an antacid 3 times in a day like a Bengali does, for just for having one pack of meat that he bought in a market and stuff. So what the fuck is your naturalistic argument here? So then I remembered those arguments after even becoming a right winger again. Then I heard the term naturalistic fallacy, and I realized that it's a common mistake that people make. So yeah, I do take it seriously. Okay, let's check out the paper now. What's wrong here? Okay. So guys, Partition and the Ruptures in Dalit Identity Politics in Bengal. Okay, very fascinating name. A number of historical studies have revealed that there were powerful Dalit movements among groups such as the Rajbongshis and Nomoshudros in northern and eastern districts in colonial Bengal. The weakening and, in some cases, almost disappearance of these movements after 1947 is difficult to explain. One plausible explanation could lie in the emotional and physical displacement caused by partition of the province. Both groups lived in the border region and lost their geographical anchorage following partition. This essay explores the movement of the Nomoshudros before and immediately after partition. Partition represented a major historical contextual shift. Very well said, very well said. See, for these sorts of things, or at least for articulating these problems properly, you need social scientists after all. See, everyone thinks, especially people in the world or regions in India who did not directly face partition or don't know anyone who has faced partition, they think the people who did face partition, it was just about, oh, वहां पे एक घर था, एक दिन उठ गए वहां से आ गए, हाँ रास्ते में कुछ मारदंगा देखा होगा, हाँ ठीक है, फैमिली में भी कोई एक दो मर्डर हो गए होंगे, उससे ज्यादा क्या है. But there are such fucking, I mean, insane, deep, familial relationship dynamic problems that I started realizing after I started thinking about the different problems that Bengal society faces, Bangals face. Then I could trace almost everything back to partition, because again, as a former Bengali progressive, every problem that I saw, I had the tendency to blame it on capitalism or the oppressive Indian state, or maybe the regressive society in general. So I realized that no, but there are clearly something that distinctly happened during the time of 40s and 50s, and thereafter. Okay, so what was that? I mean, mysterious thing, and especially problems that did not happen in Punjab. What was different between Punjab and West Bengal? They also faced partition. Lo and behold, they had a sort of an evil thing called something that Dr. Ambedkar recommended, by the way, population exchange, which didn't happen in Bengal. Which is why I just yesterday On that also, sorry guys, I haven't slept too much and have to had too much coffee, so I'm stammering like a coke addict again today. So I let me just calm down. I yesterday I watched some portions of a podcast of Deep Haldar on the very nice Hindi podcast called Gyan Jada Hatke. I love that guy's personality, and I very much love the fact that he called his podcast Jada Hatke according to his own non-urban pronunciation. He didn't call it Zara Hatke. So in Gyan Jada Hatke, Deep Haldar was reminding has an entire book on that topic, that Bengal's partition didn't even end. It's called a long partition. Okay, Sekhar Bandyopadhyay has a book called Long Partition of Bengal. So these things are different. The problems it creates are different. Okay, and it can't be just an economic problem that अच्छा वहां पे वो बहुत जमीन था, यहाँ पे आ गए, फिर यहाँ पे गरीबी था, फिर वहां से उठ गए, और या फिर उठ नहीं पाए. तो अब जिनका जमीन था ही नहीं, लाइक माई एंसेस्टर्स, सो वी डिडंट फेस एनीथिंग. वहां पे गरीब थे, यहाँ पे भी गरीब थे, हो गया, नो प्रॉब्लम. नो, दैट्स नॉट द केस. There are significant problems that happened with these kinds of forced displacements. Then I was discussing with my vocalist colleague. I stayed at his place the day I went to Deep Haldar's book launch, and he is not a right winger. He's just open to listening all sides of the argument. Okay, so I was discussing with him, and he's Ghoti. His family has not seen partition, although his grandfather was famous for beating up a lot of people who are not willing to give places to Bangals, and forcibly making Bangals settle there. Okay, even though some people in his neighborhood did not want it. So he's very famous in those places. So while talking to him, I was fathoming and grasping the idea that, see, there's so much shit going on in Bangladesh even today, and so much of shit has gone on in Bangladesh for all these decades, and still some people don't come here. So what does that tell you? The people who did come, they did not come for convenience or just for fun. Okay, imagine the kind of insane things they have had to seen. I'm completely forgetting English. Imagine the kinds of things they saw and experienced, to the point where the rich people who lost their zameen and stuff, and the poor people who did not have anything to begin with, and all of them took one similar step, that is leaving that country and coming to this country. Okay, so what things might have they seen? Okay, unimaginable things. तो वो स्कार्डिंग तो छोड़ ही दो, आने के बाद क्या होता है? आने के बाद जो होता है उसके लिए ही बहुत बहुत रिसर्च जरूरी है. उसके लिए ही बहुत बहुत आई थिंक फिक्शन, इंग्लिश एंड बंगाली फिक्शन हैव बीन रिटन. 10,000s of books have been written on partition. The only problem with all those books by famous Bengali authors has been that their conclusion or their sort of a disclaimer has been that, but yes, it was horrifying, but after all, there was blame on both sides. Dupakkhe dosh chilo is a line everyone has mugged up in Bengal and keeps blabbering every time partition is discussed. Maybe not after this year's Durga Puja and the new third independence of Bangladesh. So let's continue. Partition represented a major historical contextual shift that resulted in a transfiguration of Namashudra identity politics in the two Bengals, revealing the conjectural nature of such collective social identities. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, the Namashudra experience of displacement and struggle for rehabilitation brought to the foreground their quote-unquote Hindu refugee identity, overshadowing, at least for a time, their Dalit cultural politics. Introduction. It is widely believed that caste does not matter in public life in West Bengal in the same way that it does elsewhere. The discourse of class has overtaken the discourse of caste. And we know how well that has worked out because the worst things that you would expect in a casteist state pretty much happens in West Bengal as well. I.e., lower caste people commonly die in political riots, and upper caste people are in each and every position of power in Bengal. However, Marxist intellectual and one-time left-front minister Ashok Mitra has acknowledged that this is misleading. He wrote in 1986, quote, "I had begun life with the fond notion that at least in Bengal, caste conflicts yield to class conflicts when it comes to the crunch. But one soon realized one's mistake and was convinced that West Bengal was essentially no different from the rest of India. And he was saying this in 1986, 4 years after they banned English education, and 7 years after Morichapi massacre of, again, Dalits. This myth of exceptionalism was blown away in 2004 by the midday meal controversy, about which we discussed, we learned of in Dalit paper as well, where she says that yes, casteism exists in West Bengal and it has nothing to do with the Dharma Shastras. It was widely reported that parents of upper castes in a number of districts objected to their children eating meals at school that had been prepared by volunteers from Dalit castes. The ensuing public debate and journalistic investigations revealed that in villages, even those within a 200-kilometer radius from Calcutta, an interesting mixture of caste beliefs, class interests, notions of hygiene, left liberal ideology, and electoral democracy had given currency to a modern discourse of hierarchy and discrimination that is not very different from the traditional discriminatory discourse of caste. Exactly what I was just saying 2 minutes back. That you may be doing the same thing but for different reasons, but the end result is same. And I think Dalit paper is absolutely fascinating for pointing and articulating these points, and especially her experience in the villages, and how they spoke of lower castes gaining too much power because of CPIM. One lower caste saying that even lower caste is gaining too much power and stuff. And then the two most fascinating things were, one was the CPIM leader's wife saying that these people are getting too much attention, the lower caste and stuff. And then there was the insane, hilarious thing where the upper caste of a village used to happily organize Durga Pujas and invite everyone. They did not discriminate against anyone. But when the lower caste started organizing their pujas, or the same puja they started organizing, then the upper caste stopped attending. Because, remember, caste is a status group. Castes are status groups, and status groups are all about maintaining your cool, exclusive, edgy, underground, sort of a different from the norm club, where your exclusivity is all that matters. And if your exclusivity goes, you make up your own different exclusivity. So the ensuing public debate, 200 kilometers, yeah, not very different from the traditional discriminatory discourse of caste. A sustained historical investigation of the question of caste and caste prejudice within progressive Bengali society reveals a complex interplay between social and ideological factors and political circumstances in the lead up to the independence and partition of Bengal. Caste was as much a potent factor in determining social relations in colonial Bengal as it was in any other region of India. This has been said by Bose and Sekhar Bandyopadhyay in 1990. There was also no shortage of protest against caste discrimination in Bengal's history. Colonial Bengal witnessed assertion of Dalit identity politics and protest in the same way as other parts of India. However, it is also important to recognize that Dalit identity politics in Bengal cannot be wholly understood if reduced to oppositional narratives of resistance. In fact, the Dalits of Bengal adopted varied strategies of survival and negotiation in their engagement with hierarchies of power at different historical junctures. It is the disappearance of Dalit protest against caste discrimination in post-independence West Bengal that is a puzzle. In this essay, I illuminate some of the main reasons for the abatement of caste protest in immediate post-partition West Bengal, and in doing so, attempt to dispel the myth of the absence of caste prejudice from social and political life there. Holy shit. Now, this paper starts off with a fascinating, a very juicy, interesting question. So, who all want to guess here? What can the reasons may have been? Okay, have I completely forgotten English today? So, what all may have the reasons been? Okay, guys, put up your guesses. Okay, my guess is that since Jogendranath Mondal was the most significant leader and he betrayed the Dalits of Bengal to such an extent, maybe that vacuum was filled up by Congress, who said that no, just be nationalist and don't be let's say concentrate on Dalit identity politics and stuff. Maybe, at least to the Bengalis of West Bengal. They didn't do so in other places, I guess. Who knows? But remember, CPIM came to power in 1977. Whatever happened after 77 is understandable as actions of CPIM, the good and the bad in context to caste. But what about 47 to 77, when Sekhar Bandyopadhyay also points out that caste politics just disappeared? So One argument of this essay is that the trauma of partition and physical displacement ruptured and destabilized Dalit identity politics in such a way that their strategies of survival needed to be scripted in a different language. I argue that in post colonial West Bengal, the partition violence and the refugee influx led to a rephrasing of the idioms of victimhood, the terminologies, lexicon, etc., and resistance. Victimhood and resistance का परिभाषा ही बदल गया, placing less emphasis on caste and focusing more on the predicament of displacement and the struggles of the refugees, all of which was blamed on religion in general, for which they came up with the term Dupokhe dosh chilo. There was blame on both sides for the partition, apparently, even though one side called for the partition. These idioms could be more easily absorbed into the modern tropes of social justice deployed by the left liberal ideologies of the state. Hence, while caste discrimination did not disappear, it was subsumed in a different idiom marked by the dominant discourse of class and religion. Dalits were thus compelled to adopt different strategies of survival and methods of empowerment that suited the conjunctural shifts in the relations of power in post-partition West Bengal. Okay, Nandish. How long is it? We'll discuss it someday. Post-partition West Bengal. So, Dalit movements in the late colonial period. The Dalit assertion movement in Bengal started in the 1870s and had two clearly identifiable geographical locations, with two communities at the forefront of these movements. One was the Rajbongshi community that lived mainly in the North Bengal districts of Rangpur, Dinajpur, Jalpaiguri, and the princely state of Kuch Bihar. The other was the Namashudros of East Bengal, who lived mainly in the districts of Bakhorganj, Faridpur, Joshore, and Khulna, but were also scattered in other eastern and central Bengal districts. When the scheduled caste political movement started in the early 20th century, these two communities provided the majority of its leaders and its main support base. For both communities, their close geographical proximity was a major factor in their successful social mobilization, and significantly, both lost their geographical anchorage as a result of partition. However, other historical factors also contributed to the increasing fragmentation, the fragmentation of the movement even prior to partition, and I illustrate this with reference to the Namashudra community. The Namashudra movement began in 1872 as part of a wider project to claim social rights following their limited economic mobility after they had successfully reclaimed the marshy lands of East Bengal and the forest tracts of Sundarbans. Now, see the insanity of this statement here. I'm not criticizing Sekhar Bandyopadhyay here. He's pointing out a fact here. But see the insanity of what he's pointing out. That the Namashudra movement, first and foremost, began with that group claiming wider project to claim social rights following their limited economic mobility. तो उनका जो limited economic mobility था, ये गया ही नहीं West Bengal से, especially after CPM came to power. So you see, that is why casteism stays alive in West Bengal, because what started in 1872 was not achieved even in, let's say, 2005, 6, 10, 2024. Limited economic mobility was still the problem. And this economic mobility is what we are saying is probably the biggest factor in destroying caste-based bad behavior. The economic disruption that's required. Okay. And then the second part is even more fascinating. He says they had successfully reclaimed the marshy lands of East Bengal and the forest tracts of Sundarbans. Remember what happened to the Dalits of the marshy lands of East Bengal and Sundarbans, okay? So, you see, so by the beginning of the 20th century, the movement was proceeding on two very distinct lines. The educated leadership of the community chose the path of constitutional politics, actively opposing the Congress-led nationalist movements, including the Gandhian mass movements. At the same time, a more popular mode of assertion of Namashudra identity emerged out of a Vaishnava religious sect called Motua, which followed the more radical Shohojia tradition of Vaishnavism that challenged the notion of hierarchy and Brahminical domination. Now, these days I know a bit of some little things about Motuas. They are about 40 lakhs in number. Some of them live in Bangladesh, some of them live in West Bengal. A lot of Motua's conditions in West Bengal is as bad as it was on the day they came to Bangladesh. CPIM has done nothing for them, and the first time I heard the word Motua was in 2008-9, when at that point Trinamool was starting to sort of get Motua votes, quote unquote. Okay, and that's when CPM realized. I remember Brinda Karat went and touched the feet of some elderly female Motua leader and stuff. That's when CPM suddenly woke up to the fact that, holy shit, we have to play these politics as well. So Motuas follow Horichand Thakur, of course. Now, some people believe Horichand Thakur and the idea of Motua is completely different from Hinduism, and we have nothing to do with Hinduism, and we hate Hinduism and stuff. Some of them believe, no, we are inside Hinduism, but we just hate Brahmins. And some people have come to the conclusion that, yeah, whatever happened, whatever bad stuff happened to us for being lower caste happened in the past, we have a different problem today altogether. The Namashudra peasantry in colonial East Bengal had two adversaries, the two referral groups for constructing their adversarial identity politics. Vertically, there were the Hindu high caste rural gentry, whose association with the Congress was the main reason for the Namashudra's aversion to it. I see. Yes, because Congress was historically upper caste in West Bengal. Now, which is why even the city folks of Kolkata, the Bhadraloks of Kolkata, never really supported CPIM. CPIM never was very successful inside Kolkata, remember? And yesterday I was thinking of it. It might be a conspiracy theory, but who knows? Jadavpur, which is sort of the bastion for Bengal Bhadraloks, Brahman Boito Kaistos, who came during partition. Most of them live in Jadavpur, okay? Jadavpur, now of course it's changed largely, but Jadavpur earlier on used to have mainly Brahmins and Boidos and Kaistos, okay? All the partition refugees who were Brahman, Boidos, Kaiston lived in Jadavpur. In other places like Bijaygarh, Ajaynagar and Azadgarh, Netaji Nagar, these places in South Kolkata, Toliganj area, these places had both the some lower castes and mainly middle class castes like mine, and some Brahmins as well. Some Brahmins, some Boidos, some Kaistos who were not that, let's say, rich and stuff. But why is the name Jadavpur? Was there a large community of Yadavs, people from the Yadav caste living there, who were kicked out to settle Brahmins, Boidos, Kaistas? I don't know. I'm making an absolutely random conspiratorial claim here, but maybe, who knows? Maybe someone knows. I hope they can comment here that I'm wrong. So the Namashudra peasantry in colonial East Bengal had two adversaries, the two referral groups for constructing their adversarial identity politics. This was all their adversarial identity politics was based in reference to these two groups, which is, there were the high caste Hindu rural gentry, whose association with the Congress was the main reason for the Namashudra's aversion to it. Horizontally, there were the Muslim peasants, whom they viewed as their competitors. And this spirit of competition ultimately found expression in a series of riots between the two peasant communities in rural East Bengal. But Hindu-Muslim competition was not a clear-cut communal divide, as there were also instances of two groups combining against their high caste Hindu landlords. We know what that means. Okay. In other words, there were multiple layers of social relations that both converged and cut across caste, class, communal boundaries in colonial rural East Bengal. Since the 1940s, however, as the incidents of communal violence increased, the growing polarization tended to exacerbate the Namashudros' already competitive relationship with the Muslims. For many Namashudros, the quote-unquote Muslims rather than the caste Hindus now appeared to be the greater adversary. Okay, this is some scholar called with Das, the surname Das, writing in 1991. Okay, 33 years from today, almost 34 years from today, the man mentions that Namashudros started viewing Muslims as a bigger threat than caste Hindus. But you don't know about this. Nor have you heard of Sekhar Bandyopadhyay, nor have you heard of his research, nor have you heard of the idea that casteism exists in Bengal. I wonder why. The Dhaka riot of 1941 is usually taken as the watershed that marked this communalization of politics in Bengal. Vinab, so where did they go when all those Brahmins, Boidos and Kaistos came here? As India drifted uncomfortably towards transfer of power and partition, there were remarkable shifts in the alignments of power in Bengal. Similar developments were also experienced within the Namashudra community. Community leaders began to associate themselves with the Congress, seeing it as a way of obtaining access to echelons of power in post-colonial India. Yeah, obviously. At the other end of the spectrum, Namashudra peasants in the villages of eastern Bengal, meaning Bangladesh, became extremely anxious about the prospects of Muslim political domination in a Muslim majority province. Some leaders sought to engage the Muslims and prevent the split among the peasantry. In 1943, Jogendranath Mondol. Now, before we get into Jogendranath Mondol, let me have a sip of coffee and also point out that Bengalis don't really have a Yadav surname. Okay, I've never met a Bengali with a Yadav surname. So that place was obviously filled with UPites and Biharis. Okay, so where did they go? And now, how can those same descendants of those Bengalis who settled there and made them disappear from a place literally called Yadavpur, outsiders and stuff, and Gutkhak Khor, etc. Okay, lol. Bangladeshi Pakho can give some explanation. So Winnie the Pooh is saying Hindu identity was invented by Bengalis based on Vedanta. Vedanta never gained mainstream popularity before Brahmo Samaj and Vivekananda. Hindu identity was invented by Bonkim. So was Bonkim the chief advisor of Chhatrapati Shivaji? What's your point? Are they as UPI as Rabindranath Thakur was? Rabindranath was what a Kushari Brahmin, right? So Yadavs, now UP is a little farther away from Bengal, so my guess is these were just plain Biharis, because Biharis have been in West Bengal for far too long, ever since, like, remember Nina, I used to give this example countless times when I first heard of it in the history book called Bangali Itihash. There was a language called Proto Bengali, written by it's called Bengali as well. It was written by a famous Buddhist monk called Bhushuku in ancient India. So the way he writes that quote unquote Bengali poem is half Bhojpuri, half Bengali. Okay. Yeah. Barbarika Smriti, yes. So the Ghosh, Ghoshal, Goswami, etc. are all Goyals, etc. So Yadavpur, are you then what happened? Those Biharis became Bengali and changed their names to Ghosh, Ghoshal, and Goswami. That also might not have happened, right? Or maybe it did, because when people live in one place for too long, they even forget where they came from. It has I know some people. There are some Boruas I know who say they are Bengali. Okay, even though obviously they are not from Bengal. They are obviously not Bengali. At least let's say 5-6 generation backwards. Okay, then there's an insane guy I know whose surname is Negi. His middle name is Singh. Everyone in his family speaks Bengali. For the first time, I told him that, bro, your surname is from Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh. He said, what? No, we are Bengali. He says, so I said, how is your surname Negi? He says, I don't know. We are Bengali. So Ghosh is Kulin Kasto, whereas Yadavs are not Kulin Kasto. नीना, उसके लिए तो जस्टिफिकेशन चाहिएगा भी नहीं, चाहिए होगा भी नहीं, वो ऐसे ही हो जाएगा, होना ही है वो. Negi is Thakur from Uttarakhand, right? And the Negi I know is says he's Bengali. So, my sip of coffee. In 1943, Jogendranath Mondol, a Namashudra leader, established the Bengal provincial branch of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's Scheduled Caste Federation, but his pro-Muslim League stance did not endear him to many among the scheduled caste population. Guys, this is very significant, the stuff Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is saying, because remember, what's the norm in academia? Remember the stuff we read yesterday, okay? In such a world, Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is at least pointing these things out, because the conclusion he draws, the tone of it, some of you all won't probably like it or won't agree with, but at least he's bringing these things out. Now, Dr. Abhishek Bishwash was telling me, or Mr. Sociologist was telling me that I did not know this, that it was in fact Jagannath Mondol's leadership because of which Dr. Ambedkar himself won elections. Okay. Dr. Ambedkar had nowhere to go electorally speaking without Jagannath Mondol, as far as I've heard. In the 1946 election of the 30 seats reserved for the scheduled castes in the province, the Congress won 26, constituting an almost complete reversal of the election results of 1937. Mondol was the only scheduled caste federation candidate to win a seat. So the organization was called Scheduled Caste Federation. The 1946 riots brought further divisions that went beyond the ranks of the Dalit leadership and caused even greater damage to their identity politics. Mondol remained the only non-Muslim minister in the Muslim League ministry of H.S. Suravardi, who was widely believed to be the mastermind behind the great Calcutta killings, in which Dalits were among the victims. Holy shit. Sekhar Bandyopadhyay. See, this is called honest scholarship. He does not, his agenda, he may have an agenda, he may have a bias. That's not the main point of his paper. In the Noakhali riot that followed, a significant number of Namoshudros lost their lives and property. See, everything we are saying, everything Mr. Sociologist says is backed up by these world-famous sociologists who are just sort of hidden under the carpet in the mainstream discourse of Indian politics. When the Hindu Mahasabha launched its campaign to partition Bengal to create a Hindu majority province of West Bengal within the Indian Union, and it was endorsed by Congress after the Tarokeshwar Convention in April 1947, the Namoshudros became actively associated with this movement. Holy fuck. Namoshudros became active with Hindu Mahasabha, endorsed by Congress. So what was this unity based on, guys? What's this immunity? Where have we heard this phrase before? What unity are we talking about? Why is Congress, Hindu Mahasabha, and Namoshudros uniting? Their major concern was to retain their habitat, the districts of Bakurganj, Faridpur, Joshore, and Khulna, within the Hindu majority province of West Bengal. Only a minority of Dalit leaders, such as Mondol, opposed partition of Bengal, that is. It is misleading, however, to conclude that this meant an appropriation of Dalit protest by the Hindu nationalist politics. In 1946, when the communist-led sharecroppers movement known as the Tebhaga movement started, the Rajbongshis in North Bengal and the Namoshudros in East and Central Bengal were its main protagonists. Its impact on the Rajbongshi movement was more divisive, as it involved direct confrontation and bitter armed conflicts in many areas between the Rajbongshi Joddars, large landholding peasants who were the main targets of this movement, and the Rajbongshi Adhiyars, sharecroppers. So Rajbongshis had to fight amongst themselves. In this poor peasants movement, class had clearly overtaken caste as a mobilizing force and divided the identity politics of the Rajbongshis and the Namoshudros down the middle. In the last days of the British Raj, the Dalit movements in Bengal were heading in various directions. But partition and the resultant displacement were to impose completely different strategies of survival and resistance on these Dalit communities. Partition and the displacement of identities. Okay, Jadavpur was named after late Jadav Narayan Sarkar, Zamindar of Sonarpur. Okay, that makes sense. I'm glad to be proven wrong. I did say it was just a conspiracy theory that randomly popped in my head just last night. Okay, then. Thank you for the information, Hot TV. You are very hot. As identities are constructed, articulated, and shaped in special historical moments, partition represented a significant conjunctural shift that led to a reconfiguration of Namoshudra identity politics. For a number of Namoshudra leaders, alignment with the Congress and remaining within India seemed to offer a realistic strategy of political empowerment. As already mentioned, not all of the scheduled caste leaders thought in the same way, and there was a clear rift within the Dalit leadership on the partition issue. For instance, the Bengal branch of the Scheduled Caste Federation resolved on 14th May 1947 that, quote, The division of the province into Hindu and Muslim Bengal was no solution of the communal problems. Yeah, obviously. अब इनको आम्बेडकर से भी ज्यादा पता है. And would quote unquote check the growing political consciousness and ruthlessly crush the solidarity of the scheduled castes of Bengal. Wow, wow. They said, do not partition this beautiful land of Bengal. Let it go completely to Pakistan. This Dalit anti-partition campaign was spearheaded by the Pondra Kshatriya leader Anukul Chandra Noshkar in South Bengal. On a wider level, a similar initiative was instigated by Jogendranath Mondal, who opposed the partition proposal at the Constituent Assembly. If Bengal is partitioned, he argued, the scheduled castes will suffer the most. With the benefit of hindsight, Mondal's observations sound prophetic. But it was Dalit opinion that was clearly divided on the issue of partition, especially since many other Namashudra leaders continued to view the Muslim majority as the ultimate threat to the well-being of their community. Accordingly, partition and the creation of a Hindu majority province in West Bengal were seen as the only viable option for economic and political survival. It was not surprising then that 25 of the 30 scheduled caste members voted for the Congress Mahasabha sponsored partition resolution in the Bengal Legislative Assembly on 20th June 1947. Mandal's stance was soon vindicated because despite the Dalit peasants' active support for Hindu nationalist politics at this penultimate stage of colonial rule, partition was not the solution. In fact, regardless of their vehement protests, all of the districts they lived in went to East Pakistan. Lol. Yeah. In fact, regardless of their vehement protests, all of the districts they lived in went to East Pakistan. In Bengal, the migration of refugees took place in waves rather than as the cataclysmic movement of a large population that occurred in Punjab. Holy shit, I know these things now. I just said this at the beginning without reading from here. The first wave of refugees. I think Deep Haldar said this to us. Mr. Socialist obviously knew anyway. Deep Haldar informed me for the first time that that's the way partition happened in Punjab. The first wave of refugees mainly consisted of the wealthier classes, mostly upper caste Hindu gentry and the educated middle classes with jobs, including many of the Namashudra middle class who could sell or arrange the exchange of properties. Shondip Bandhu, okay. Very few Namashudra peasants migrated or could afford to migrate at this stage because they lacked the necessary resources. Those who took the fateful decision to relocate had barely anything more than their clothes and arrived in a land that appeared to many to be foreign and hostile. Now, this is the exact experience of my caste, not my caste, my ancestors. But of course, the poor people in the middle castes are ignored the most because they are not they don't have the privileges of the upper classes or the middle classes. They don't have the cultural capital of the upper castes. They don't have the social justice narrative in favor of them, which isn't there in Bengal anyway, as the lower castes do other in the rest of the country. The Namashudra, no, that does not mean I'm saying that I'm the biggest victim out of all these fucking groups. No, my point is that therefore it becomes more difficult for people in that group, in the poor sections of the middle castes, to not be able to fathom their problems, to not be able to understand what's really happening, why is their history this way, etc. Those who took the fateful decision to relocate had barely anything more than their clothes and arrived in a land that appeared to many to be foreign and hostile. The Namashudra peasants who remained in Pakistan clearly had the quote-unquote Hindu minority identity imposed on them by the growing power of Islamic nationalism in the Pakistani state. Of their leaders, Jogendranath Mondal chose to remain in Pakistan and joined the Liaquat Ali Khan ministry as its labor and law minister. He remained in position until 1950, and during his time in office alternated between representing larger Hindu minority interests on the one hand and championing scheduled caste identity on the other. The projected quote-unquote other of the Pakistani nation was the quote-unquote Hindu, a category that collapsed the differences between all non-Muslims and incorporated the Dalit. This is what I said 3 days back, that it does not matter who in the in-group considers to be Hindu, okay? It does not matter if trads think Brahmo Samajis were not Hindu. It matters, and only this matters, that the outgroup thinks you are Hindu. If the outgroup says you are Hindu, you have to be Hindu. You have to consider yourself Hindu. If the outgroup says Rabindranath Tagore was a bigot, even though the trad says he was a Brahmo Samaji, fuck this shit. Rabindranath Tagore was simply Hindu. End of story. Because you see, as Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is pointing out, the projected other of the Pakistani nation was the Hindu, and the Hindu category collapsed differences between all non-Muslims and incorporated the Dalit. Okay? This is exactly what Chhatrapati Shivaji wanted. This is exactly what Savarkar matlab bol ke thak gaya. This was illustrated when the Namashudra peasants fought for social justice under communist leadership in 1948. The state in Pakistan represented the Namashudra peasant rebels as quote-unquote Hindu miscreants. तब तो भाई लोअर कास्ट मिसक्रिएंट नहीं बोलेंगे, तब दलित मिसक्रिएंट कोई नहीं बोलेगा, तब तो ये हिंदू मिसक्रिएंट है. तो जिनको बोला जा रहा है वो खुद बोल रहे हैं नहीं नहीं हमको तो हिंदुइज्म से कुछ लेना देना नहीं है, हमको तो ब्राह्मण पसंद नहीं है. ब्राह्मण बोल रहा है कि ये तो इडियट्स है, इनको हमको ये पसंद नहीं है. जो मानने वाला है वो बोल रहा है ये हिंदू है. तो the Namashudra movement was thus appropriated by large. So you see how politically advanced an idea, how complex an idea the Hindu unity idea is, or maybe it's as simple, but how out of the ordinary, how non-conformist, how counterculture-y, how counterculture-ish this idea is. I'm telling you guys, we are the punk rock generation. The Namashudra movement was thus appropriated by larger political forces. By being excluded from Pakistani nationhood and labeled quote-unquote Hindus, the Namashudra were easily appropriated by the Hindu communal discourse in India. Appropriated might be a harsh word. Now, Savarkar and all word against casteism anyway, so is it fair to call it appropriated? Because I'm thinking it may be fair for one reason, that the society was largely casteist anyway. So even though Savarkar wasn't, or his groups weren't. So do you think it's fair to say that when Namashudras got kicked away by, or got, let's say, called Hindus by Muslims in Bangladesh, is it correct for Sekhar Bandyopadhyay to say that then Namashudras got appropriated, which is sort of a criticism, degrading term, appropriated by Hindu communal discourse in India? Do you think it's fair? Put up your hands and cast your vote. Their political predicament came to a head during January and February 1915, when at last the Namashudra peasants decided to leave Pakistan in large numbers. Why? Because of casteism. Brahmin casteism कर रहा था इसलिए पाकिस्तान से चले आए. This second wave of refugees consisted of largely Dalit Namashudra peasants and was occasioned by a particular incident in the Bagherhat subdivision of Khulna district in East Pakistan in December 1949. Many versions of the story appeared in the local media or circulated as rumors. I mention here that Jawaharlal Nehru's version as presented in the Indian Parliament. In the last days of December 1949, a police party went to the Namashudra village of Kalshira in search of a few communists and were resisted by the villagers, resulting in the death of one police constable. 2 days later, a large police force assisted by Ansars attacked not this village, but 22 neighboring villages inhabited by quote-unquote Hindu Namashudros. Lo and behold, आप कहाँ जाओगे? आप बोलो, ये in group है, वो out group है, ये real Hindu नहीं है. And then, as Nehru put it, quote, there was arson and looting on a large scale. Men were murdered and women ravished. There were also forcible conversions and desecration of places of worship. This is not Jawaharlal Nehru's quote in Amritobajar Potrika, 24th February 1950. Holy shit. This is Nehru saying. This is Nehru admitting. Fuck. Nehru is saying there was arson and looting on a large scale. Men were murdered and women ravished. There were also forcible conversions and desecration of places of worship. And of course, the children of those converted Hindus today obviously hate India with all their fucking guts. In the emotive language of the Indian Prime Minister, what started as an anti-communist operation soon became a religiously charged incident. The Calcutta press immediately seized on it. The fact that the victims of this incident were communists and Dalit Namashudros was And communist and Dalit, okay, the fact that the victims of this riot were communist and Dalit Namashudros, that fact was lost. They were all claimed to be Hindus. ठीक है, जब वो गाड़ में आग लगती है, तब तुमको एक और बड़ा इन ग्रुप ढूंढना है ना, तब तुमको एसोसिएशन करना है. So you see, what was I saying just yesterday or day before yesterday, that it's not in the nature of anything, any group, any society, any person, or even, I guess, philosophically speaking, any non-living matter, to be united solid unless there is really a threat. Okay, जब threat दिखा, automatically journalists से लेके victims themselves admit this, yeah, we are Hindus, और कुछ नहीं है. This is from The Statesman, 2nd February 1950, and Amrita Bajar Putrika, 11th February 1950. Okay, communists and Dalit Namashudros who were being victimized by Muslims were getting called just Hindus. The media frenzy that followed sparked the outbreak of fierce anti-Muslim riots in Calcutta and Howrah for the first time since partition. And the Muslims, अच्छा यहाँ पे तब payback हो रहा था, यहाँ पे repercussions हो रहा था. And the Muslims from West Bengal began to flee. This led to retaliatory violence again in East Pakistan. ये retaliatory, तो भाई retaliation West Bengal में हुआ for something that happened in Bangladesh. Retaliation का retaliation फिर से भोसरी के इस पाकिस्तान में हो रहा है. चुतिया ऐसा एक देश है. Where the rioting spread from Khulna to Rajshahi and Dhaka and then to Mymensingh and Borishal districts. Once again, the main victims of these riots were not the high caste Hindu Bhadralok who had already left, but the Dalit and tribal peasants such as the Namashudros and the Shautals, the tribals, who are now forced to leave their homes in large numbers and migrate to India. Why not migrate to Myanmar? India ही क्यों? ऐसा क्या है इंडिया में? What connects them to India? Okay, our constitution. The tragic tautological logic of such violence was thus marked by spatial movement of people with distinct class and religious affiliations. Okay, तो religious affiliation, class जो भी हो, अचानक सब वही बन गए जो कि सावरकर का ड्रीम था. The memories of violence and the experiences of displacement among Namashudra peasants seem to have altered their political outlook and perceptions of their community. They too began to look at themselves as an uprooted minority, quote unquote, violated by the Muslim, quote unquote, other. This suited the propaganda of the Hindu Mahasabha and the Calcutta press, who sought vengeance for this pogrom. Caste mattered less in Bengal at this juncture, and shouldn't people be happy about it, that caste mattered less in Bengal finally? Now, who were some of the significant people in Hindu Mahasabha back then? Somnath Chatterjee, CPIM Somnath Chatterjee, his father was a Hindu Mahasabha leader. CPIM Sujan Chakraborty, his father-in-law was a famous Hindu Mahasabha leader. The Namashudra movement could not withstand such violent social and physical dislocation. Once a tight-knit, geographically integrated peasant community, the Namashudros were now dispersed in refugee camps across eastern and central India. In the unforgiving physical conditions of these resettlement colonies, many Dalit refugee families perished. Others suffered unimaginable hardship and privations. Displacement had significant ramifications for the Namashudra movement, when its caste and class-based agenda being subsumed under the Namashudros' new label and experience as Hindu refugees, a label that both media and the Hindu Mahasabha were actively propagating in their campaigns against the Pakistani polity. This Hindu communal discourse was further strengthened because many of those who migrated after the riots of 1950 had traumatic memories of horrific communal violence that apparently made no distinction because of caste. Holy shit. This is a significant paper. This Hindu communal discourse was further strengthened because many of those who migrated after the riots of 1950 had traumatic memories of horrific communal violence that apparently made no distinction because of caste. Yehi hai factor. This is what today's India's politics stands on this very claim, which is accused to be a lie or a misrepresentation of facts by today's commies. Even though their big daddy commie is still alive, he's 72 years old, and who will give a speech on Friday. Hope some of you all go there. So, apparently made no distinction because of caste. Such sentiments led to retaliatory violence by Dalits towards the Muslims in the districts. Some of the worst violence in 1950 took place in the border district of Nodia, where the Namoshudro migrant peasants driven out of their villages in Khulna in East Pakistan took revenge on Muslim villagers, driving them across the border into Pakistan, resulting in an almost complete exchange of populations in those regions at least. The trauma of partition violence, the desire for vengeance, and the strategies of survival seem to have crystallized into a vehement reaction against their significant quote-unquote other, the Muslims. If these events led to the Dalit identity being subsumed within the Hindu fold, did that entail the complete disappearance of caste-based identity from the Bengal political landscape? More importantly, what the their fuck then happened to RSS and Hindu Mahasabha thereafter? ये सब होने के बाद, after so much support for Hindu Mahasabha, what happened afterwards? After that, in the following decades, अरे भाई, this is insane history I'm learning of for the first time. Boishali is saying, this traumatic memory could have given rise to a significant Hindu resurgence in Bengal, which was systematically crushed, particularly in West Bengal, by Nehru leftists. Yeah. And also, of course, mainly by Bhadraloks, the Brahman Purohit, those guys. Dilemmas of Dalit identity. After 1947, Jagannath Mondal remained in Pakistan and joined the central cabinet. But following Jinnah's death, he ruefully lamented that the scheduled castes did not receive a quote-unquote fair deal in any matter. This was followed by what he viewed as the East Bengal government's quote-unquote anti-Hindu policy. Okay, it wasn't anti-Hindu to begin with. It wasn't anti-Hindu when it asked for partition. It became anti-Hindu when Jagannath Mondal realized it was anti-Hindu, which victimized the Namoshudros and other minorities equally. The Islamization policies of the Pakistani state, coupled with the continuing oppression of Hindu minorities in East Pakistan, eventually drove Mondal to resign his ministerial position in 1950. His resignation was delivered in a long letter in which he detailed the Dalit dilemma and his own unsuccessful efforts to uplift. Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is saying the unsuccessful efforts to uplift marginalized communities, regardless of their religion. Kisi ko uplift nahi kar paye. He concluded by justifying his resignation in the following words. This is, I guess, from his letter, which I had read as an audiobook in my channel, right? When I am convinced that my continuance in office in the Pakistan central government is not of any help to Hindus. Oh, acha. Now he's saying Hindus. Now all of a sudden he's saying Hindus. Pakistan central government को भाई Hindus को help करना होता तो वो अलग देश क्यों बनाते? This is like saying, why is Sachin Tendulkar such a bad singer? Why does Lata Mangeshkar play such bad cricket? When I am convinced that my continuance in office in the Pakistan central government is not of any help to Hindus, I should not, with a clear conscience, create the false impression in the minds of the Hindus of Pakistan and peoples abroad that Hindus can live there with honor and with a sense of security in respect of their life, property, and religion. This is about Hindus. Even though I became the law minister of a country that asked to be separated from a country that had a Hindu majority. What the fuck? Mondal migrated to West Bengal. Oh, yeah. But his arrival did not automatically rejuvenate a moribund Namoshudro caste movement. In fact, Mondal found himself on more hostile ground on the other side of the border, as his political persuasion and history led him to feel increasingly alienated. Lol. Nina, I have to disagree with you a bit here. Nina is saying, I'm sorry, but we're blaming Mondal over this, but Dalit community is also responsible for this BS happening. Mondal was a symptom of what mindset British brainwashed them into. I don't think so. Because, see, the truth is operation was there anyway. Okay. There's no denying that. But Mondal himself was that Dalit community. He was the face of the Dalit community. So, and especially people who don't have too much of critical thinking, like people who do claim to have critical thinking even today, are so easily misled by politicians. So many commies, well-educated commies, free-thinking commies, think Rahul Gandhi is actually a better leader than Narendra Modi, or can do a better job with running the country than Narendra Modi. Okay. So how would a dirt poor, forever uneducated for generations person understand that this Jagannath Mondal man is misleading them? I don't think that highly of masses. I don't even expect from them that highly. And remember, then that same Dalit community, when they come to West Bengal in the 70s, they show that their priorities are on point. They say that, yes, we don't need any extra help from you. You have let us settle here. Fair enough. and just give us an access to your markets in Kolkata. We'll grow fucking everything in Marudjapi and sell in Kolkata. वो भी हो नहीं पाया. किनसे? Not from Dalits, not from scheduled caste leaders, from communists, run by a Kayasto chief minister, standing on the shoulders of mainly Brahman Boido Kayasto academics. So, an isolated Mandal fighting for his own political survival could hardly provide the leadership required to regalvanize the displaced Dalit refugees in West Bengal. Because why? Because most of them have bought into the Hindu unity idea, because they have now been, let's say, swallowed in by the Hindu Mahasabha discourse. And the British education of, let's say, British discourse of, let's say, lower caste having a bad life did not really reach them because of the Dalits, because of the British, okay? It was done by well-educated, well-meaning Bengali activists only, who saw that there was, in fact, real oppression going on. But more importantly, when the Dalits did get convinced of this Hindu unity idea, what happened? What the fuck happened after that in West Bengal? That's the bigger question. And how is it that the rest of Bengal convinced everyone in India and in the world that there is no casteism in West Bengal? Which Sekhar Bandyopadhyay is showing, or will show, is not the truth. And an isolated Mandal fighting for his own political survival could hardly provide the leadership required to regalvanize the displaced Dalit refugees in West Bengal into political action. In appearance, at least, the Dalits in this province seemed to have accepted their location within the nation space, for the time being, a space dominated by a pro-refugee Hindu communal discourse. See, my God, the amount of things that's repeating itself, I mean, just after 100 years, or let's say after 80, 90 years, I wonder what's in store in the near future, in the next 1 or 2 decades. Because everything seems to be like a pre-partition or recently partition situation of India today in India. Now, अब तो मतलब चेन्नई दिल्ली का वो उत्थान हो गया है in the non-left discourse. There's Ranganathan from Delhi, even though he's a Tamil Brahmin. There's Desai Deepak. There's Sanjeev Sanyal. There's Deep Haldar. And there are people from Bengal even in the spirituality space. We have Rajarshi Nandi now. Such a significant face. And no, we'll not get into that discussion now. But I do think very highly of his contributions. However, the Dalit refugees could not ultimately be recruited by the Hindu communal parties, although the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha and later Jan Sangh made fervent attempts to appropriate this constituency. The Congress, led by Nehru, had some success in attracting Dalit support with its promises of social justice, equal rights, and affirmative action policies. Ye dekho. Dimag kaise khaya? Niners, check this point. They were convinced by Jagannath Mandal. Then they get convinced by Nehru, because conservatism doesn't change minds. Conservatism stands on the on the shoulders of social justice. This is why, okay? Conservatism doesn't push the needle. Needle pushing is done by social justice discourse. But this support was damaged when Dr. Ambedkar resigned from his cabinet position, expressing sheer frustration over the orthodox position to his proposed Hindu Code bill by members of parliament. These political developments, however, had limited repercussions in the public life of West Bengal, where most prominent Dalit leaders had already joined the Congress. Even Jagannath Mandal, at one time Ambedkar's solitary supporter in Bengal, issued a press statement on 15th October 1951, criticizing Ambedkar for resigning from the Nehru cabinet on the issue of the Hindu Code bill, which he argued had nothing to do with the welfare of the scheduled castes. Mandal compared the conditions of the scheduled castes in India with those of the black population in the US and the scheduled castes in Pakistan, and contested Ambedkar's claim that the scheduled castes in India lived in misery. In Mandal's opinion, the problems of the scheduled castes had been effectively addressed in Free India by the affirmative action policies of the state. Oh, देखो देखो कितना फ्लिप हो गया. पहले पार्टीशन सपोर्ट किया, पाकिस्तान का लॉ मिनिस्टर बन गया ये बोल के कि भाई हिंदुओं के ऊपर, हिंदू लोअर कास्ट के ऊपर इतना अत्याचार हो रहा है कि वी आर बेटर ऑफ इन अ मुस्लिम मेजॉरिटी कंट्री. Then the moment he comes back to India, he's saying, no, अब तो कोई भी अत्याचार नहीं हो रहा है लोअर कास्ट के साथ, अंबेडकर को कुछ पता नहीं है. ठीक है, इसको बोलते हैं इंटेलेक्चुअल्स को कोऑप्ट करना. जो कि उस जमाने में अपेरेंटली नेहरू ने किया था जोगेंद्रनाथ मंडल के साथ. सी. A significant section of the Dalit leadership thus seemed to have accepted the Nehruvian policy of offering statist and legalistic solutions to the Dalit problems of social justice. 1951 में जोगेंद्रनाथ मंडल बोल रहा है कि अंबेडकर गलत है, इंडिया में शेड्यूल कास्ट डोंट लिव इन मिजरी. क्यों? नेहरू का अफर्मेटिव एक्शन पॉलिसी बहुत बढ़िया काम कर गया है. Endorsement by Dalit leaders, however, should not be viewed as blanket support for Congress in West Bengal. Rather, as I argue below, the socio-economic challenges faced by the refugees meant that they were not easily appropriate by any one party. Okay, let me check some comments now. I'll sip some coffee now. Nehru handled caste well, I think. Well, he managed to win votes regardless of caste politics. That's the phrase you are looking for. Because Congress and CPIM, they have one thing in common. They never, ever fuck with the dominant caste of a region, which is the exact opposite of what Narendra Modi does. Let's see where's the Implastri's comment. Sangh is only able to make inroads with Dalits today because of BJP's political power. Communities in India chase political power. Dr. Ambedkar wanted to create a Dalit bloc as a vote bank for himself. Hardly any Dalits voted for him. Instead, Dalits voted during his time. Dalit votes during his time went to upper caste Congress leaders, which is why Jagannath Mandal had to secure votes for Ambedkar. Sangh couldn't convince Dalit community because they lacked political power. In a poor country like India, political power is necessary to bring social change. Without it, none will believe you. They had slavery and racial discrimination. You can have a lot of critical thinking, but if someone captures your deep sentiment, it will take hold over you. Yes. The lower caste of Dalits in Bengal are voting for BJP mainly, no? Today, yes. Bhushali is saying, Ranjan, what I still don't understand, what caste were Muslim converts from? After conversion, did they become equal to the upper classes of Muslims? Why the silence from Jagannath Mandal even then? Good question. The majority of Bangladeshi Muslims are former tribals, okay? There are legit historians who have said this. If Mr. Sociologist is still in the comment section, he can put the name in the comment section. Who have pointed out that these lands were mainly uninhabited. There was not real, significant township and cities and stuff. There were mainly, of course, forest dwelling populations who were converted en masse. Then there was the son of Raja Ganesh, a Hindu king, who converted for a time, as a standby measure to go through some negotiations. He was under threat and stuff. The moment the threat goes by, and he converted his entire family as well. The moment his that threat goes off and he kills that Muslim king who was threatening him, he reconverts back to Hinduism with a Hiranyagarbha ritual. His son says, no, I like Islam, I'm not converting back, and then goes on to convert the highest numbers of Muslims any king in the history of West Bengal has ever converted. So it was done by a guy who was born Hindu. Lol. And whose father begged him to reconvert back to Hinduism. So mainly all the large scale tribal populations of Bengal were converted into Islam. Now plenty of upper caste also converted to Islam. Now there are two theories with this factor. One is that you will find the Chaudhuri surname, which is very common among Bengali Kayasthos, landowning Brahmins, I guess. Even there are some Brahmins I know who have Chaudhuris as well, because they got land grants later on. But anyway, Chaudhuri is a pretty common surname in India, right? For Hindus, Chaudhuri is a very, very common surname for Muslims in Bangladesh as well. Now, some people say, or actually it may be both, the case may be both, that the British were apparently giving out land grants, and then the surname became Chaudhary regardless of what your religion. I don't believe it entirely, because Muslims would never take a Hindu surname, according to me at least, not that I'm an expert on history. And the other factor may be, and both may be true, some may be true for some and some may be true for others, which is that all those Chaudhuris were Kayasthos who converted to Islam as well. Some people claim that there are no Ashrafs in Bangladesh, because for for being Ashraf, you at least have to have they're like the Anglo-Indian equivalent of Muslims. You have to have some foreigner blood in your body at least, and that the people number of people who do have foreigner blood in Bangladesh is very 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 low. There are Muslim Chaudhries in northern India too. Yeah. So do you all know anything about this? Were they converts from Hindu Chaudhries, or were they given upadhis of Chaudhries? But Chaudhry is a very common Muslim surname in Bangladesh. Like there's a famous Rabindranath Sangit singer, Rezwana Chaudhry Bonna. Then I think who was the first prime minister? I mean, Sheikh Hasina's father. I think their surname or their relatives were also Chaudhries. Yeah, lots of Chaudhries in Pakistan as well. Wouldn't the Urdu-speaking Bangla be considered as Ashraf? Who were the Urdu-speaking Bengalis? Because the Dobhashi tradition came in pretty soon, and they started making up their own Bengali. The Bengali that has Nani, Pani, Khala, Fufa, Gosol, etc. Mujibur Rahman was Iraqi descent, Ashraf. Yeah, yes, but someone in his side was, I guess, Hindu maybe, or they did get the land grants and get called Chaudhries, because I was checking out his family tree. I was seeing some Chaudhries there. There are Muslim Tyagis too. अच्छा अच्छा, अब वो तो त्याग करके है, हिंदुइज्म त्याग करने के बाद ही मिला है, त्यागी तो उपाधि नहीं होगा शायद. If Ambedkar didn't have vote bank, why did Nehru prop him up so much? Today's Turks are actually former Bangladeshis. क्या out of India theory है? So these Chaudhries were the one who converted en masse to Muslim, it seems, perhaps. So, oh, Vinap's comment. As I argue below the social... Okay, let's continue. The Congress government's failure to offer a reasonable rehabilitation package for the refugees in the East remained a major cause of concern for refugee groups. Neither did they respond overwhelmingly to the drive by Hindutva leader Shyama Prasad Mukherjee towards Hindu mobilization, primarily because it focused less on their immediate problems of poverty and unemployment. This partly explains why the refugees responded more favorably to the communists. Oh, okay. Guys, long question has been answered. This question gets asked by every newcomer on my channel who realizes that I'm a Bengali who's not a leftist. This is the first question they always ask. I guess Sekhar Bandyopadhyay just answered your question. Partly explained because they were at least convinced, they were foolishly convinced that yes, communists will do great things for the poor. This partly explains why the refugees responded more favorably to the communists, and most of the refugee protest movements of the period were organized under communist leadership. Not surprisingly, perhaps, and I did claim this as well. Many people were disputing. Now, okay, but Sekhar Bandyopadhyay agrees. Kanchan Gupta agrees with me. Who was that? On whose there's the famous building of CPIM. Pramod Das Gupta, yeah. Pramod Das Gupta was one of the more famous leaders who organized the new refugees, Hindu refugees, and demanded things from the Congress government and stuff. Not surprisingly, perhaps, in the subsequent political landscape of West Bengal, the refugees provided a stable constituency for the Communist Party of India and later the CPIM. Now, let me tell you a hilarious story. I know a person who's not a leftist now, but his grandfather was not grandfather, I think some distant relative was a CPI leader. He had a shop, and him being a communist helped those workers to open his start their own union. Okay, he helped them start a union in the shop, and they said that yes, unions are necessary so that even I am never able to oppress you. Then that union ended up closing down his shop. Lol. There are Ashrafs in Bangladesh. The Nawab of Dhaka were Ajlaf, and he married an Ashram girl or an Ashraf girl. The Nawab has to take permission to enter in the bedroom. Source. Joddobi tumi amar guru. What's that? There are Ashrafs in Bangladesh. Okay, that's I agree with you, Karan. Bangladesh Muslims had very little genetic similarity with Pakistani Muslims. Yeah. Dada, like I said, Sangh until recently never chased political power. Sangh always claimed politics is dirty. CPIM held protests. Did have political power. Shekhar proves that. Yeah. Not surprisingly, perhaps, the subsequent political landscape of West Bengal The refugees provided a stable constituency for CPI and CPIM. Indeed, the United Central Refugee Council, which coordinated refugee political protests in West Bengal, was by 1951 dominated by the leaders of the CPI. However, this particular complexion of refugee politics, in which the Dalit refugees seem to have participated alongside caste Hindus for shared social and economic goals, did not imply the demise of their distinctive Dalit identity. Why? Dalits were operating with a range of interests in mind, opting for Hindu, communist, or Congress affiliation to express and redress their plight. This is what happens. This is the natural way of thinking for any human beings. The world is not ideal. Conservatism does not push the needle. This became apparent in an interesting way during the first general election in Free India in January 1952. Dalit vote in a mass democracy. Caste was a major factor in the first election in Free India, held in January 1952, as all political parties had their eye on the reserved seats for the scheduled castes. In West Bengal, the independent Dalit voice, which had been so prominent in the pre-independence period, remained unorganized. Dalits had only nominal representation through the People's United Socialist Front, a broad electoral alliance of left-leaning parties, including Dr. Ambedkar's Scheduled Caste Federation, SCF. Although the federation had decided to contest all reserved seats in the country, its organization and following in West Bengal were very limited. Anandabazar Putrika, 9th October 1951. The only other Dalit representation in this province could be offered by the independent candidates. The most important candidate in this group was Jogendranath Mondal. Interestingly, in this election, Mondal did not project himself as a Dalit leader, इनका तो co-opt हो चुका है, but more as a representative of a much broader social front incorporating both the Dalits and the refugees. The local Dalit groups organized processions in support of his candidature, and he was also supported by the local Refugee Lawyers Association, and with their help organized a number of street corner meetings in the constituency. Jugantar Putrika, 1952. On 3rd January, a meeting of the refugee women at Park Circus, under the presidency of Sadhana Bosu, a caste Hindu, unanimously resolved to support the candidacy of Mondal. This was followed by endorsement by upper caste Hindus who praised Mondal's character and political experience. The experience he gathered by screwing over Dalits in Bangladesh. Despite contesting a reserved seat, Mondal did not give any appearance of representing an exclusive Dalit identity in this election and was supported by a wide cross-section of non-Congress voters in the constituency. The rhetoric of Dalit cultural politics was carefully avoided during this election. Carefully avoided. Why? Dada, this paper should be studied with Sangh's work in West Bengal. I'm sure the Sangh had grassroots presence, but their distaste for politics diminished their work and reputation. Cross-section of non-Congress voters in the constituency. The rhetoric of Dalit cultural politics was carefully avoided during this election. This seems to have been largely due to electoral procedures relating to the reserved seats, the already fragmented nature of the Dalit constituency, reflected in voting patterns, and the wider atmosphere of post-independence India, meaning a very nationalist fervor and stuff. Thus, nation and class, poverty and social justice temporarily displaced caste, hierarchy and social disability from the political vocabulary of this election campaign, and everyone sought to speak of an inclusive nation. The Dalit leaders had little autonomy in this environment. No doubt the Congress party was a form. Yeah, this is one thing we all will probably disagree with in his tone in the conclusion as well, that he's saying that when Dalits are getting respect as just Hindus, or when Dalit identity is no longer important or getting subsumed in the larger Hindu social identity, that is somehow is being designated as losing agency and stuff. Now in this part he's saying that they did not have any autonomy. In the conclusion, I think, as far as I remember, he says, Sekhar Bandyopadhyay says that they did not have any agency. That is a problem, because if there's unity and there is actively a situation where people are saying that no more should the discriminations occur, what's even the point of that agency? Unless that agency remains just to break up that unity. No doubt the Congress party was a formidable organizational structure during the 1952 election, employing various strategies to appropriate the Dalit voice. While many Dalit votes did flow to the Congress, others went to opposition candidates from the CPI, Forward Bloc Marxist, or Krishak Mazdoor Praja Party, Peasants Workers Tenants Party. In many constituencies, the winning Congress candidates won fewer votes than were cast against them. But the Dalit opposition vote was unorganized and was divided among numerous independent candidates, with the result that none of them won. 3rd February 1952. This was in marked contrast to the prominence of the organized Dalit voice in the provincial election of 1937. As discussed above, one of the explanations for this shift can be found in the physical displacement of partition and the resulting ruptures in the Dalit movement. The dominant public debate over the miseries and struggles of the Hindu refugees at the time overshadowed other parallel narratives of discrimination and suffering. In the early days of freedom and dominant voice of the nation silenced all minority voices from the margins, giving the appearance that the caste question had already been resolved in Bengal. This myth also remained intact because there has been no major organized Dalit protest movement in this province over the last 60 years. In the electoral democracy, while many Dalit leaders remained with the Congress, there were also leaders who tried to articulate an independent Dalit identity. However, they did not get much traction and remained, according to one scholar, the Don Quixotes of scheduled caste politics in the province. Now, obviously, what the question I was asking, that what's even point of that agency if everyone is not even going to do the discrimination, but as we have seen that it ends up happening anyway. So maybe that agency would have been better off, and maybe West Bengal would have been better off. Now, in the end, they probably wouldn't have been, because what we would have is just Dalit versus anti-Dalit versus pro-Dalit caste politics and parties based on that. Because none of these fuckers would ask for capitalism. वो तो नहीं होता. तो बाकी स्टेट ने दलित पॉलिटिक्स करके भी क्या उखाड़ लिया, और यहाँ पे नहीं करके भी क्या हुआ. वहां पे डिस्क्रिमिनेशन भी नहीं गया, कैपिटलिज्म भी नहीं आया, दलित पॉलिटिक्स स्ट्रांग भी हुआ, दलित ग्रुप्स में से कोई डोमिनेट नेता आके बड़े मजे कर लिए, यहाँ पे वो भी नहीं हुआ. तो आई गेस maybe it was, I think, yeah, in conclusion, I think West Bengal is a little worse off, because there are basically no Dalits who are having a life better off. Of course, no one's peeing in their mouths. Fair enough. Wo bhi hai. I'm debating with myself here, live on camera. Lol. What do you think? Is West Bengal better off in caste discourse and dynamics? Because the presence or absence of a kind of politics is not the factor here. Whether the lives of Dalits actually got better in Bengal, that's my question. Did it get better? Just because some guys did not pee in their mouths? Maybe, of course. That's obviously a great thing that no one pees in your mouth. But on the other hand, forever you remained poor. Forever you remained out of academia, entertainment industry, politics. Forever you were the ones who got killed in riots. That's not what happened in the other states. So I guess it's a mixture and it's a balance. Thus, while caste discrimination undoubtedly remained prevalent, idioms of caste were not articulated at the political level in the post-1950 period, as the discourse of class alongside the discourse of nation and religion displaced that of caste at the historical juncture, marking the onset of freedom and partition. The reasons for this are complex, and relatively little research has focused on this question. I can therefore offer here only a broad overview of the historical developments to contextualize this concern. Brilliant. Just 3 pages left, guys. Now he's going to give a broad overview. Nice. Let me have a little break of checking some comments and having a bit of coffee. That is true. पोल वायलेंस तो होता ही नहीं है. पोल वायलेंस में लोअर कास्ट का मरने का तो प्रश्न ही नहीं पैदा होता है दूसरे स्टेट्स में. Has become much worse. Poll violence is endemic in Bengal. You don't even get proper political power. Yeah. And it's mostly lower caste dying there. So whether you die because you are Dalit or you happen to die and you are Dalit, that's not the factor we are discussing. Can one become Dalit? Non-genetically, no. But if you don't have a life of Dalit, but you have genetically Dalit blood, then of course you can. Because they believe in birth-based caste system, apparently. Because there are second-generation Americans claiming to be Dalit feminists in California. So you're basically asking us to pick which is better. कब गरीब रहना या सबका गरीब होना, खुद गरीब रहना. Barbarica Smriti, a good question. I'm going to be more precise now. What I'm asking you is that this phenomenon, this fact that Bengal did not have Dalit politics, the fact that they did not have any agency, did that make their lives better in West Bengal or not? better than the states where they did have some organizational capabilities. Turkey is the new national symbol of Aryan invasion theory has posited that my caste is from steppes and Ukraine or Russia. So these narratives get propagated and are all related to the two-nation theory. I don't. In Telangana, only trading class of Muslims have foreign ancestry. Rest are all native converts, mostly OBC, SC, ST. I see. Sofa surname. Ahmed Sofa. Bengal social progress stalled after 1955. Pole violence means you suffer. Your suffering never comes out. Yeah, Dalits stayed where they were since the 1950s in Bengal, whereas rest of India made progress. This is my point. That yes, there is no active discrimination, bad behavior, or peeing in the mouth and stuff. But there is still midday meal stuff. There is still Doyaboti Roy stuff that she pointed out. There is still you dying in political violence. And on the other hand, you don't have the voice, the social justice firepower that you have in other states. How is West Bengal better off? I think not. Avinav is saying I will change my answer because they were poor back then, and as they don't have any agency, they remain poor still. Yes. Now that I understand your question, no, I don't think the bottom line has been better for Bengal. Oh, guys, now everyone is agreeing that Bengal is not better off. Holy shit. I'm brainwashing too many people. I can tell you one thing. UP scheduled castes prefer to live here in Bengal. I have talked with a person from that community. If you are government servant, scheduled caste, still you can't sit with Brahmins or Thakurs. I see. Now, is that the case in just West Bengal or just Kolkata? Would they prefer to live in the mafisals and villages of West Bengal rather than UP? Or do they mean that Kolkata is better off than UP? If they say Kolkata is better than UP, I would not have too many qualms, because after all, Kolkata still has some remnants of its past wealth, cultural capital, economic capital, everything. Because a specific political power was usurped by CPM with practically zero leadership from the Dalit caste. Yeah. So is there, I mean, in Bengal, nobody can identify their UP caste. Right. Maybe that's why. Yeah, that's a very important point, actually. Nina, very well said. Second point is also great. Remember, caste has relevance. Specific castes have specific relevances in specific geographies only. Caste is absolutely related with geography, which is why Karl Marx had said that when British end up making railways, casteism will go away. Because when you travel distant lands, you can't be looked down upon for being from a different caste, and you can't be appreciated for being from a higher caste, unless that person asks you elaborately and you say elaborately that yes, I am that caste from that place. Because caste always is involved with proximity to power. Because remember, why are we talking about Bhadraloks? Why aren't we talking about Brahmans, Boiddos, Kaistos of the rest of West Bengal? Okay, because unka proximity to power hai nahi. Brahmins, Boiddos, Kaistos of Kolkata are the people we are talking about. Okay, and proximity to power institutions has always mattered in the idea of caste. Okay, like Brahmins of Ujjain, Brahmins of Kashi, Brahmins of specific places were important for specific actions. Okay, so even today, this is just some autoethnography bullshit, you can call it, but I have a friend, a Kaisto, who lives in Kolkata, who has not lived in Kolkata forever. Okay, has lived in Kolkata for the last like 9 years. Okay, has only one Brahmin friend, has a lot of middle caste friends, has some lower caste friends, has some Muslim friends, but she's a right winger and a devout Hindu. She gets surprised when, just for devil's advocate's sake, I make in front of her the same arguments that Commie Bhadraloks make. Okay, she falls from the sky listening to those arguments. Okay, so a Kaisto from Kolkata, why doesn't she have those views? Because, and her consumption pattern is also not the same as the Bhadraloks of Kolkata. She does not watch English movies. She does not watch, let's say, English TV shows and web series. She does not listen to English music. Okay, which are the common consumption patterns of Bhadraloks of West Bengal. Okay, so you see, her lack of proximity to power in Kolkata does not even make her a genuine upper caste in Kolkata. So she's Kaisto in name only. Hashtag not all Kaistos of Kolkata. Okay, that's how caste works. Proximity to positions of power is not just a feature of dominant of caste. An elite is defined by their proximity to positions of power. M. Shastri, तुम्हारे बातों में थोड़ा एक hole है. You are right, absolutely, but it's there's a hole in it, which is elites are castes only. Elites are high status groups, which are castes according to us. Hot TV saying, I think Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay novels played a role against caste system. In simple words, he exposed topics like caste systems, decreasing populations of Hindus. Yeah. Not in a village, but Kolkata surrounding. Yeah. His caste does not matter that much here. Same stuff happens in Maharashtra in rural parts. Discrimination against Dalits still exists. Niranjan, do the rural areas of Bengal have much upper caste population left? Rural, I have no idea. Mofusils, there are some. But AA, there's a I think she's a woman who lives in USA. I have been like an FBI profiler. Okay, I have deduced that the person who is called AA in our comment section is a woman, a Gujarati woman who lives in USA. Okay, now she made a brilliant fucking point a few months back. I was almost like I fell off my chair listening to her comment. We were discussing that how capitalism destroys caste barriers and caste discrimination, and see, it's such a fascinating thing that today Brahmin guys and even girls are delivering food to me on Swiggy. She first made a comment, and this is very relevant to our discussion here. She said that no, it's not a very good thing that Brahmins are delivering you food on Swiggy. I thought, okay, she's just being a casteist trad. What the fuck, let's move on. The very next comment, she explains it, which is a brilliant fucking deduction for which you would probably need to pass at least social science masters. She said, it's not a good thing. It's not a very good thing to be proud of as a person in West Bengal, because upper castes already have so much privilege that they should be doing way better off things. If the upper castes are delivering you food on Swiggy, it means the lower castes are even in bigger hell. So what the fuck are they doing then? That of course convinced me, and then I said that yes, that's a very good point, and actually you're absolutely right. So then what is the benefit of capitalism here? The benefit is at least this, that the upper caste person can't afford to feel any discrimination towards delivering food to a lower caste, and in the off chance when an upper caste person, a person who wants to be casteist still has to accept food from a lower caste person. That's the extent of it. What capitalism has solved it here. But पूरा properly तो capitalism आया भी नहीं है, सिर्फ स्विगी जोमेटो आया है. तो बाकी लोअर कास्ट क्या कर रहे हैं? वो तृणमूल के गुंडे बनेंगे. For a fair comparison, we'll need to see if Dalits of Bengal get peed on when the so-called dominant castes have enough money to do nothing else instead of scrambling for basic necessity. Abhay is saying at least castes in other states have some political heft, even if not socioeconomic one. In Bengal, they have nothing. That is the thing I'm beginning to understand. Bengal might be worst of all worlds. Let's continue now. Okay, so I can therefore offer here only a broad overview of the historical developments to contextualize this concern. West Bengal politics has always been dominated by a middle class, the Bhadralok gentlemen, as they call themselves. Almost invariably, they belong to the three upper castes, the Brahman, Kaisto, and Boiddo. But as Partho Chatterjee, the other world-famous Bengali sociologist I was mentioning in the beginning of the live stream, but as Partho Chatterjee has argued, they have never claimed superiority on the basis of caste, but rather through the strength of their education and culture. Bye. What superiority? What other kind of superiority have Brahmins ever claimed? How is this different? I mean, तो देखो, यही तो है कास्ट. आई एम बेटर एडुकेटेड देन यू, आई एम मोर कल्चर्ड देन यू. तुम्हारा एडुकेशन घटिया है ही नहीं, तुम्हारा कल्चर चुतिया कल्चर है. यही तो है कास्टिज्म. Partho Chatterjee is saying that no, you see, they were not being proud of their ancestry because of education and culture. They were just being proud of their ancestry because of education and culture. As the Dalits were physically dispersed after partition, so were the upper castes, which were continually challenged by various regionally entrenched middle peasant castes. As a result, there has been no aggressive caste-based landlordism and no reported case of caste violence in West Bengal as we find in many other provinces in India. And politics has never been overtly organized around caste identity. He is saying this in 1997, 19 years after the Morichapi massacre. In this context, the Dalits were attracted. See, it's a game of semantics. कि अच्छा दलित है इसलिए नहीं मारा मोरीछापी वालों को, ऐसे ही वो मरे तो हमको कुछ नहीं आता जाता है, उनका एजुकेशन नहीं है, उनका कल्चर नहीं है, तो वो मरे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है हमको. इसको पार्थो चैटर्जी कास्ट नहीं बोल रहा है, इसके आज के सब कॉमीज कास्ट नहीं बोलते हैं, मगर यही है भोसड़ी के कास्ट, यही कास्ट है. ये एक एकेडमिक कंसेंसस बन गया था पूरे दुनिया में, which is why I have shared those book illustrations, no? Caste in Germany, caste in medieval England, caste in North America, etc. People understood that this is what the fuck caste means. But then some people decided, no. And also idiot casteist trads helped commies in this, that no, casteism is distinctly a beautiful or slash a horrid thing that has come out of the Dharma Shastras and was invented in the brilliant slash evil minds of Hindu rishis, Indian rishis. Wahi se caste aaya hai. And everyone accepted and followed along. But that is not the fact. Partho Chatterjee is literally describing casteism, and he is even ignoring lower caste deaths for the same reasons. I mean, lower caste deaths that happened for exactly caste-like reasons, and then saying there were no significant atrocities against Dalits. ये क्या है? ये कैसे चलेगा? In this context, the Dalits were the Dalits were attracted to the powerful communist movement, which gradually absorbed and channeled many of the Dalit grievances against class-based inequalities. The refugees remained the staunchest supporters of the communists until the rude shock of the Morichapi incident in 1979. Bigger question is, why is then Partho Chatterjee 1997 saying that there is no violence against lower castes? When the police of the left front government massacred Dalit refugees trying to settle on forest lands in Sundarbans, see Ross Malik 1999 for details. Are bhai, Sekhar Bandyopadhyay has acknowledged that Morichapi has happened. Holy shit, you all, I'm sure some of you all can now understand how insanely significant this is, because most people pretend like it never happened. Now, a legit academic who's arguably the most respected Bengali, internationally famous Bengali sociologist in the world today, even he's saying that, yeah, it happened. It was against lower castes. And even then, all this got shrugged under. Okay. Fuck. Despite this, in rural West Bengal, the CPIM thrived on the support of the marginal peasants and sharecroppers, many of them Dalit. अब वो election तो कितना होता सबको पता है. Thus, the Dalits in post-independence West Bengal adopted different strategies to negotiate with the new institutional and political structures in the province. The left-front government's land reforms undoubtedly helped many poor peasants, including Dalits, who then had to be sharecroppers on a family basis, lineage basis. Unka caste wahi pe solidify ho gaya. Successive panchayat elections allowed some Dalit agricultural laborers access to the lower ranks of the rural power structure, while at the same time excluding them from the leadership or decision-making bodies. These reforms did not mitigate caste discrimination or redress the power imbalance in society. Yet, caste mobilization appears to have remained localized, never achieving mass appeal. To fully appreciate the reasons underlying the post-independence history of caste in West Bengal and Dalit mobilization, we may well require more sustained investigation of the specific local dynamics and the particular history of that area. Conclusion. This essay suggests that Dalit politics cannot always be comprehended within a homogeneous oppositional narrative of dissent and defiance. The Dalits at different historical conjunctures have used various social and political idioms for negotiating identity and have deployed diverse strategies of survival and resistance. Dalit politics had many levels and forms and should be studied within this heterogeneous context of political change, where Dalit agency needs to be identified and recognized. Dalit agency, after the discussion I had with the comment section, I am convinced that, in fact, yeah, Dalit agency is important. In teleological accounts, but it's not the only important thing, it's not the most important thing. Most important thing is still economic disruption. In teleological accounts, because तब economic disruption होने से क्या होता है, कोई भी lineage को बड़ा मतलब दादा बनने का मतलब चांस नहीं मिलता है. दादा बनने का चांस ही है कास्टिज्म और impending casteism. In teleological accounts, the Dalits often either remain quote-unquote socially marginalized or are quote-unquote nationalized, their agency downplayed in favor of the striking narratives of institutional discrimination and political appropriation that tend to overshadow palpable evidence of Dalit initiative, enterprise, and success, ones that got quashed in Modichapi. In Bengal, after the election of 1946, the discourse of caste was overpowered by the politically more influential discourses of nation and religion. The Dalits could not afford to remain impervious to these movements. The sharecroppers' agitation in the same year damaged Dalit solidarity in a significant way. The Dalit political leadership tried strategically to realign its position within this shifting political paradigm, but this led to serious ruptures. Two major communities provided both the leadership and the support base for the organized scheduled caste movement in pre-partition Bengal, and both of these lost their geographical cohesiveness as a result of partition. So you see, partition was an insanely big, gigantic, devastating, deathly blow to Dalit politics. And why? So in conclusion, what is one of the biggest reasons of Dalit politics not being able to take a foothold in Bengal? The bloody partition, the long partition itself, which is not something that happened in Punjab. It was not a one swift blow and one swift amputation. It was a torturing to death. That I think the death hasn't even occurred, the torture goes on. This experience of displacement and violence, which apparently made no distinction between the Dalits and the caste Hindus, compelled Dalits to align with the mainstream political parties in the province because that seemed to be the most useful strategy for survival and empowerment within the emerging post-colonial structures of power. This did not mean that these political adjustments resulted in the disappearance of distinctive Dalit identity or mitigated the everyday experience of caste prejudice. However, I offer this conclusion as informed conjecture that requires substantiation with more empirical research. तुम लोग और भी इसको आगे लेके जाओ. That's his message. If the Dalit voice was drowned by the weight of the new nation, the everyday experiences of the refugees and Nomoshudra peasants remained a constant reminder that neither the Congress party nor communist politics could fully express their plight. It is not surprising, therefore, that before the Panchayat elections of 2008 in West Bengal, the Nomoshudras of Nodia formed a new political organization known as the Motua Dalit Shankhaloghu Shangrami Morcha, which contested the election in alliance with some minor Muslim groups. Now, I don't think this exists anymore, or this is the faction that hates Hindus in general. But there is another organization that doesn't hate Hindus, just hates Brahmins, and some don't even hate Brahmins anymore. They proposed to revive the Dalit Muslim political alliance, which leaders such as Jagannath Mandal stood for in the pre-partition days. They were not successful in this Panchayat election, but they did signal the need for more research on the question of caste and Dalit identity in post-partition West Bengal. What a fabulous paper. What a brilliant paper. That's the end of the paper, guys. Let's check some comments now. We'll have a discussion if there are juicy comments, and I'll finish my coffee. My favorite example is that of the difference of in Bhadralok reaction against Randesh Kali and Arjigod. Now, I in fact did ask a proper Bhadralok, very, very well-educated presidency topper, Kayast, a friend of mine, on this issue that you know what I share on my WhatsApp status and Facebook stories from time to time. You know that insane things are happening to Bengali Hindu girls or Hindus in general, Hindu women in general, every day from different sections of society. I didn't start the conversation this way. I didn't say that, hey, why are you protesting Arjikar so much? We were talking about something else. I was making fun of some insane thing some woman did. I was being a men's rights activist for a while there, and she said that, why aren't you a right winger these days? Aren't you in favor of the idea that Hinduism respects women so much and there's Shakti Upasana and stuff? So I said that, see, Shakti Upasana has nothing to do with women being the direct representations of Shakti. Then every man is a representation of Lord Ram and Lord Shiva क्या? तो ठीक है, कोई भी पुरुष को गाली देना बंद कर दो, क्योंकि हम तो है रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ राम एंड शिवा. तो वैसा नहीं है. But I'm getting very pissed off with the current scenario because you all are pretending like this is the first rape that has happened or that nothing else happens in West Bengal. So she actually made in an interesting argument. She said that yes, I acknowledge that bad things are happening. I do see your statuses and stuff, but this is very, very significant and extra scary because it's happened to basically a government employee inside a government institution. If even they are not safe, how can we let's say keep quiet? Now on one hand, that's a significant point to make, that yes, it is more significant that way. But just because it is more significant, that does it make it more unfair, something extra unfair? That it doesn't, right? So yes, what Abhay pointed out here, that argument still stands, that okay, so you are now extra fearful for your own fucking life or the women around you, because now you are seeing that even government employees inside a government hospital are not safe. तब तो उठने का वक्त है भाई. संदेश खाली में हो तो वो लोअर कास्ट प्रॉब्लम है. संदेश खाली में ज्यादातर लोअर कास्ट ही है. यही सेम प्रॉब्लम है मुड़िझापी का, which is why we were discussing with Nina the other day, that Muridhapi is absolutely a caste violence, because it's the same factor, that it does not matter if they die, because their education, their culture is of a particular kind with which we don't bother ourselves. That is literally casteism. I'm seeing Shagurika. Okay. By the way, this RG Court case is the removal of a potential whistleblower. I mean, yeah. That's also the rumors I've heard. Ask the same to my locality uncles, auntie uncles. Apparently, there wasn't enough evidence that it happened. Surprising parallel between. Well said. Yes. Oh, I'm surprised that you are from Bengal. Actually, I thought you are from elsewhere. Exactly. This is the factor. Oh, who knows if it even happened or not. But 5 days after, just few days, like 4 or 5 days after the RG Court incident, when Bengal was absolutely seething with anger, it still is kind of. I myself posted some stuff about some Hindu girl, 8 or 12 years old Hindu girl getting raped by a 57-year-old Muslim man in Kuch Bihar. Why no highlight of that? वहां पे एविडेंस का वो मतलब डिस्प्यूट, एम्बिग्यूटी भी नहीं है. ठीक है, तो भोसड़ी के एविडेंस हो या ना हो, इनको उनका जो पावर का प्रॉक्सिमिटी में जो लोग नहीं है, उस सर्कल से बाहर किसी के साथ भी कुछ हो, उनको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. अनलेस there's a gigantic movement around it, unless there's a large scale business academia funding around it, जिससे कि उसके साथ खड़े होके तुम कूल बन सको, तुम्हारा स्टेटस सिंबल बढ़े, जिससे कि तुम सबाल्टर्न खेल सको, which is why their obsession with folk music and stuff, and saying that different village deities are loko devota. This has nothing to do with Hinduism. Those kinds of arguments. I can tell you why it didn't happen, why people from Kolkata were silent in Sandesh Khali case, because they saw those women as BJP supporters, plain and simple. It's not nothing. Yeah, the anger of RG Court issue is आज जो मैं channel demonetize करा है. Are the horror of partition reasons why the lower caste Hindus are more devout Hindus than upper caste Hindus in Bengal? That is what I've seen here. My personal experience, lower one's caste is now Abhinav. As far as I've understood, lower caste in Kolkata, pretty much all castes around the state, and all castes in Bangladesh, except the Brahmins, Boidos, Kaisthos of Kolkata. Every Bengali is pretty much a very devout Hindu. Okay. So, as far as the specific problem you are mentioning, that is definitely one of the factors as well for the specific groups you are mentioning, maybe. But the other bigger factor is that the Brahman Boidho Kaisthos, who are the main followers of anything Western, उनका तो मतलब डिस्कोर्स ट्रिकल डाउन नहीं किया लोअर कास्ट तक, क्योंकि लोअर कास्ट का तो कुछ अपवर्ड मोबिलिटी है ही नहीं है, ना कल्चरली है, ना सोशली है, ना इकोनॉमिकली है. तो इसीलिए they are still in a sort of a protected island, sort of a metaphor in the state, in the region of West Bengal. So which is why they go about their ways of devout Hinduness. When will you bring back Srijit Datta? Yeah. Only yesterday I was going to message him. इस वीक तो टाइम नहीं होगा, तो yesterday I had to talk with Shomode as well, Dr. Shomode. We'll do one with him probably next week, but he's saying now he is in such a situation that he can do live streams only in the mornings 11 to 12. तो तुम लोगों को बाद में देखना पड़ेगा. And Srijit Datta, I'll talk to him tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So let's see from next week only. The Sri Aurobindo episode is pending. The club culture in Kolkata is producing thugs and goons who do these things. Even small boys drink day and night in party offices. You will be surprised at the hypocrisy of upper caste Kolkata Bengalis. They are closet believers of astrology at all, preferring to appear atheist in that. Lower caste is more devout majorly because of lesser exposure to modernity. Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I was saying. Yeah, because upper caste modernity did not even reach them. I'm seeing oh yeah. Hello Dada, how are you? Pratyush Kishore. Yeah, I'm good. Dada is an expert narrative builder. नहीं भाई, हम तो सिर्फ मतलब होप कर रहे हैं कि कोई नैरेटिव बिल्डर आ जाए एंड थोड़ा बिल्ड करे नैरेटिव. But why should we divide in castes when Bengal needs united Hindus? Because Neenar, good question, important question, but this is the key issue, that just uniting on the Hindu issue is only possible in two ways. Either you say that, see, we acknowledge bad things happen to you at the hands of Hindus, and we are absolutely opposed to it, and we acknowledge all those bad things happening to you at the hands of Hindus even today, and bad things have happened to you at the hands of people from other religions as well, and bad things are happening to you at the hands of people from other religions as well today as well. So whether it's upper castes or whether it's people from other religions, we acknowledge both ones that have happened, the atrocities that have happened in earlier days, and the atrocities that are happening today. So this means, who am I having this conversation with? With lower castes. I am going to be talking to them and saying these things because I want them to get united regardless of their caste. But what it can't be on is just the idea of conservatism that, see, after all, our gods are kind of connected. So why not just be united? Be united because of those things without eliminating or ignoring one side of the atrocities. There may be differences in degrees. There may be difference, and there may be different eras of respite of one atrocity, for example, happening less at the hands of some people, and different eras atrocities happening at the hands of other people. But we'll have to acknowledge all of that and say that we are absolutely with you on all of these things. There's no point of whitewashing any of those. I don't agree with you when middle caste see Brahmins are not devout, they also started behaving like the same, which is problematic because Brahmins are small in number, but middle castes are large. What exactly is your point? Confused? Yes. I don't agree with you when middle castes. I don't agree with you when middle castes see Brahmins are not devout, they also start behaving like the same. Could you elaborate a little more? That's the BJP way, subaltern Hindutva. So are you reviewing the Ramaswamy video today? No, not today. आज नहीं होगा, वो तो 2 घंटे का है. I'm shocked to learn that the so-called higher caste Bengalis are going woke. Correct me if I'm wrong. I stayed in Kolkata. Arey, going woke? They created wokeness. Shriluka's Hindus of Bakura prevented the Islamization of Mallabhum along with the tribal groups. Shatik Das, long time no see. By the way, his professor in ISI is someone you all like. Okay then. Good discussion, guys. Let's end the live stream now. See you tomorrow. Unless the cyclone hits, we are supposed to get a cyclone, or it may go off to Odisha. Let's see. Thank you for joining, guys. Good night. Bye bye.
श्रवरूढं महाभीमं धुराद्रंष्टाम्बरप्रदम् अस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरां मुक्तकेशीं ललज्ज